You know what I find fascinating? I turn on Fox to find out how popular I am. But
how are you doing there?
I'm doing very well. I think I'm at 3% favorable, but...
All right, guys, so Sleepy Joe thinks he's been funny. He thinks he's been clever there, talking about how Fox News reports on his low poll numbers. But it's not just Fox News. Every media outlet has been reporting on Joe's falling poll numbers, as it looks like it is settling in the high 30s to low 40% approval range, with him consistently over 50% in disapproval. Now, that's if you actually believe the polls. And in my opinion, just my opinion, I don't believe the polls. I actually think that Biden is doing much worse than this. And at the very, very, very least, if the polls are true, he only has a 30 to 40% approval rating simply because the media has covered him favorably, right? They've been so light on him, okay? That's why he has the approval rating that he has right now, okay? So I don't even believe it's that high. But what we do know is that his approval is falling among everybody, all the key demographics, right? Independents, Hispanics, black people, everybody soured on Joe Biden, right? Everybody soured on him. Now, because of that, because we are in the midst of multiple crises, right? For example, the supply chain shortage, inflation, rising gas prices, the border crisis, what happened in Afghanistan, okay? Crime. We have crises all across the board. Biden has to come out here and do this town hall with CNN to answer some questions, because people want to know what the hell is going on, Joe. Why is it that under Trump, we were not in this situation, and now all of a sudden when you get in office, it seems like things have fell apart, that this country has fell apart. So Biden does his town hall, in which my opinion was an embarrassment. He wets the bed and really shows why we need the 25th Amendment to be activated now, right? We really need it to be activated now, because the man is just not mentally there. He's just not. I mean, there were moments in this town hall in which he was flashing a so-called white supremacy sign.
Don't pay a cent.
Okay, that's what the left says it is. Don't know why he would be doing that at any moment during the town hall like that. There was also a moment where he was standing, and Anderson Cooper was asking him a question, and he had his hands up like he was at the podium or something, right? Bracing. And it's like, well, why the hell are you doing that? Like, what's going on, Joe? So again, it's clear that there's some problems with this guy, right? And that he is barely there. So with that being said, I want to address a couple things that Joe talked about. The first has to do with rising gas prices. Take a look.
About that, with just in terms of inflation, because you had told us at a town hall, I think it was in July, that this was just near-term inflation. The Wall Street Journal recently talked to like 67 financial experts who said that they saw high inflation going all the way or deep into 2022. Do you think it's going to last for a while?
I don't think so. I don't think it will last, depending what we do. If we stay exactly where we are, yes. If we don't make these investments, yes.
What about gas prices? Because some states are seeing...
Gas prices relate to a foreign policy initiative that is about something that goes beyond the cost of gas. And we're about $3.30 a gallon most places now, when it's up from, was down in the single digits, a dollar plus. And that's because of the supply being withheld by OPEC. And so there's a lot of negotiation that is, there's a lot of Middle Eastern folks want to talk to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I'm going to talk to them, but the point is, it's about gas production. There's things we can do in the meantime, though.
Do you think there's do you have a timeline for gas prices of when you think they may start coming down?
My guess is you'll start to see gas prices come down as we get by and going into the into next year in 2022. I don't see anything that's going to happen in the meantime that's going to significantly reduce gas prices. But, for example, for natural gas to heat your homes as winter's coming, there's a lot, what people don't realize, we put in billions of dollars in what they call LIHEAP. LIHEAP is the provision whereby you're able to get funding from the federal government based upon your need to heat your home, and it's subsidized, in a significant way. And there's billions of dollars we have passed in the legislation I got passed in March of this year, because we anticipated that would be a problem as well. But the answer ultimately meaning the next 3 or 4 years, is investing in renewable energy. What I was able to do, by the way, I'm being literal when I say this. What I was able to do when I ran, and you remember, Anderson, because I was on your show a couple times, and the issue was whether or not I could ever get the labor union to support my environmental programs. And I went out and I went to the IBEW as well to the auto workers. And I laid out my plan. They fully embraced it. Why? Because now, and I spent time at General Motors and other companies, and I got General Motors, I didn't get them. General Motors decided after a long time spent talking to me, they were suing California because they had a higher standard, mileage standard.
Right.
They dropped the suit and agreed that they would be 50% electric vehicles by 2030. By 2030. And now you have all three major manufacturers saying the same thing. So what will happen is you're going to see a dramatic drop in what's going to happen in terms of gas prices as we go into the next 2 or 3 years, even if we're not able to break the monopoly price. They're keeping it up because, anyway. So but I must tell you, I don't have a near-term answer. There's 2 things I could do. I could go in the petroleum reserve and take out and probably reduce the price of gas maybe 18 cents or so a gallon. It's still going to be above $3. And one of the things that I refused to have happen, because I didn't want anybody, I made a commitment, if you pass the stuff I'm talking about, not one single penny in tax would go against anybody making less than $400,000. And so if you notice, these highway bills are not paid for by gas tax. They're paid for by direct expenditures in other areas. So the average person doesn't have to pay more. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. There's a possibility to be able to bring it down. Depends on a little bit on Saudi Arabia and a few other things that are in the.
All right, guys. So if you actually understood what Biden was trying to say there, he was low-key trying to pass the buck to Saudi Arabia and OPEC. If you remember earlier this year, around about time of the whole Afghanistan thing happening, Biden administration, they went to OPEC and begged OPEC. It was like, bro, please pump more oil out the ground, please. And OPEC and the Saudis was like, nah, bruh. We want this revenue, bruh. Right? We want this money, okay? We're not trying to increase supply anymore. But, that's an easy scapegoat for Biden, right? Because they're not the only reason why prices are up. The other reason is because this administration is so gung-ho about threatening the fossil fuel industry that domestic producers have not been willing to produce more oil, right? And to increase supply because they're not guaranteed to make future profits, right? Consider how, again, this administration essentially wants to tax fossil fuels out of existence, right? That's what they want to do. Okay, so this administration's renewable energy and green push really is deterring domestic producers from increasing supply, which would help lower prices, right? See, but instead of saying that, what Biden says is, well, I don't really have answers for you short term, right? I don't really know, but what I do know is that, hey, the real answer is renewable energy, right? That's what he's pushing. And also on top of that, right, because oil is traded in dollars, what happens is that when there's broad-based inflation, like what's happening right now, what happens is that oil prices go up, right? Because it's traded in dollars, right? The dollar is worth less. So you have to pay more dollars for oil, right? And that's why oil prices are up. Now, when we talk about domestic production, right, and not relying on foreign sources, this also, again, relates to the supply chain crisis, as a lot of people are saying, look, globalization has failed, right? Globalization hasn't been as great as we thought it would be, as one of the reasons why we have this supply chain crisis is because you have some of these factories in Asia that are shutting down, right? That are not getting us the goods as fast or as efficient as they were in the past because of this pandemic, right? Which signals that, hey, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be so reliant on these other countries to produce our goods anyways, right? Maybe we should actually start manufacturing and producing things in America again. Now, in my opinion, I'm not against free trade per se. I'm just for fair trade, because I do recognize the benefits of free trade and having cheaper goods, right? That's the reason why TVs and a lot of things that we have, particularly consumer electronics, the price of that stuff is actually lowered, right, over time. Now, the price of other things have went up, like healthcare, childcare, some essential services, but the price of some of this other stuff that we tend to enjoy has went down, okay? But there has to be balance. We can't outsource everything that we need, especially our essentials, to foreign countries, right? We have to start producing our essentials in this country again, and that includes pumping more oil out the ground, right? That's what we got to start doing. So we don't have to go to the Saudis and beg them to produce more oil to lower the price, right? So I wanted to address that. And now I want to address Biden's answer when it comes to the filibuster. Take a look.
It used to be you had to stand on the floor and exhaust everything you had, and when you gave up the floor and someone else sought the floor, they had to talk until they finished. You're only allowed to do it a second time. After that, it's over. You vote. Somebody moved for the vote. I propose we bring that back now, immediately. But I also think we're going to have to move to the point where we fundamentally alter the filibuster. The idea that, for example, my Republican friends say that we're going to default on the national debt because they're going to filibuster that and we need 10 Republicans to support us is the most bizarre thing ever heard. I think you're going to see, if it gets pulled again, I think you're going to see an awful lot of Democrats being ready to say, not me, I'm not doing that again. We're going to end the filibuster. But it still is difficult to end the filibuster beyond that. That's another issue.
But are you saying once you get this current agenda passed on spending and social programs that you would be open to fundamentally altering the filibuster or doing away with it? Or doing away with it?
Well, that remains to be seen. Exactly what that means in terms of fundamentally altering it, whether or not we just end the filibuster straight up. There are certain things that are just sacred rights. One's a sacred obligation that we never going to renege on a debt. We're the only nation in the world. We have never, ever reneged on a single debt.
But when it comes to voting rights...
Voting rights is equally as consequential.
When it comes to voting rights, just so I'm clear, though, you would entertain the notion of doing away with the filibuster on that one issue? Is that correct?
And maybe more.
And maybe other issues.
All right, so this is kind of a big deal, right? Because it signals that Biden definitely is like, hey, you know what? I might get rid of the filibuster. Now, before, guys, Biden was just like, no. When it came to getting rid of the filibuster, he's just like, no, I'm not doing it. Okay? Now, all of a sudden, once McConnell pulled that move, and basically to try to force the Democrats to use reconciliation on increasing the debt limit, the Democrats have decided, well, you know what? Since Republicans are going to play like that, we might just go ahead and get rid of the filibuster, right? But I think what this really comes from is the fact that Biden's poll numbers are so bad, right? It's so bad that his last hope, right? His last hope of saving his presidency is getting his agenda passed, particularly this Build Back Better plan. I'm talking about saving it from the point of doing what the progressives and the base wants him to do, not necessarily doing what's best for the country. I don't think that his Build Back Better plan is going to be particularly good for the country. I'm just saying him saving his presidency in regards to his approval rating among his own base, because that too is falling, right? Because he's not executing on any of his promises from his campaign. Okay. So again, this is important because now he's basically saying, look, you know, we'll end the filibuster, right? He says that at very least we need to bring the filibuster back to what it was before, when you actually had to go on the floor and actually talk, right? To do the filibuster, which honestly, I kind of agree with that. Like, I actually do think that you should actually have to talk through a filibuster, right? That was how it was originally set up. So I actually agree with that, but I don't want to get rid of it, right? I don't think we should get rid of it. I just find it interesting now how all of a sudden he's open to it. He's like, oh, we might get rid of it. And I think it's because his presidency is doing that bad, right? And also the Democrats are desperate to pass this so-called Voting Rights Act, right? Which essentially is going to weaken the state's ability to control their own election. And, it kills me how the Democrats keep running with this narrative that voting rights are under attack, right? That the GOP is trying to take away people's rights to vote. And again, there's never any evidence for this stuff, right? The only thing that the Democrats really are concerned about, the reason why they're so desperate to pass this, is because they essentially want people to go out here and vote for them, right? They want to make it as easy as possible to vote, right? Sacrificing integrity in order to have people vote for them. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. Okay? So it's really not about people's voting rights. It's really about keeping them in office because they're desperate to win in 2022. They know that Biden has not led a exciting presidency. His base is not excited about him whatsoever, which spells a bad 2022 midterm campaign. Biden is so toxic that even the Virginia Democratic candidate for governor is like, nah, we don't really want to campaign with Biden, right? He's that unpopular, okay? So Biden is desperate to save his presidency, okay? And that's why he's entertaining the idea of now removing the filibuster. However, the problem with that is the same problem that he has right now with his Build Back Better agenda, which is Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who both have said they don't want to get rid of filibuster, and that would require 50 votes for them to do that, right? They obviously don't have Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, so even if he wanted to get rid of it, he still won't be able to get rid of it. Now, he might be able to get rid of it for the debt limit thing. He may be able to do that because nobody is going to want to be seen as being at fault for the country defaulting. But if they start to do that, what happens is that there's a lot more pressure from progressives to push the Biden administration to go further in regards to getting rid of the filibuster altogether. So I thought that was probably one of the most interesting parts of this town hall. Overall, again, I just think that it's very clear that the 25th Amendment needs to be enacted because this man is clearly over his head. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.